Hello from Gardening at Douentza here in Ireland, and this is a very short video about weeding and specifically about showing plants who's boss. I'm sure this is a very familiar scene to a lot of you at this time of year. I guess you're out there like me, weeding and getting the borders in shape for summer. And I've been working on this particular arm of the long border recently, and it occurred to me I might make a short video about some aspects of weeding. Now, as you can see, I've done this side, I've pruned the sambucus, and I'm going to link to a video on sambucus pruning up above if you haven't seen it already. Moving around here, Stipa gigantea, which I do trim back, but it's a bit early for doing that yet, so that's been left. And then we come to this part of the border, onto the kneeler, and we're going to have a look at this particular plant in a bit more detail. Now I'm putting the name up above on the screen because it evades me just at the moment. And you can see that this plant is extremely successful. It's spreading rapidly and it looks really happy there, and actually it's quite a pretty little plant with these leaves, and it produces little white dainty flowers later in the season. But it's a victim of its own success, let's just say, because it's now filling a much larger patch than it was ever intended to fill. And that brings me to the definition of a weed, because after all, a weed is just a plant in the wrong place. Now, part of this plant is in the right place, but the large majority of it is definitely in the wrong place, because I don't want it swamping out my mucdenia, which is yet to come up here and might well be swamped by this plant, or any of the other little gems I have here in the border. So I'm going to have to take some action. Here you can see in a bit more detail what I'm talking about, and what we have here is a hemerocallis, a daylily, and this stoloniferous plant is cropping up in the middle of it and choking it out. Well, it will choke it out if we let it. So what am I going to do about this plant? Now, it's so easy to be soft-hearted when it comes to this kind of thing, and we think, oh, you know, this plant is doing so well, I'm going to leave it, let it do what it wants to. But that's just a recipe for very mucky borders and a very unmanaged garden, and certainly not an attractive one. So you really need to show plants who's the boss. So the first thing I'm going to do with this particular plant is to remove it from anything else that it's swamping, and that includes the hemerocallis over there. The second thing I'm going to do with it is to move it back from the edge of the grass. So I like to leave a good foot between the edge of the grass and the beginning of the border. Now, there are different styles of gardening, and I am aware that on the continent this kind of thing isn't done at all, but I do it, and I think it just leaves, you know, a kind of breathing space between the plants and the grass, and just helps you appreciate them a bit more. So I'm going to rip out the plant there, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide where I want this plant to be, not where it wants to be. And certainly over there by that hydrangea isn't a good place, because it's going to be choking out the bush after a while. So it's going to come back from there. And so I'm going to reduce this space to a much smaller one. Okay, so it's a bit later now, and you see that patch there? There's my plant. We can see it's looking a lot neater. It's well back from the border. It's out of the hemerocallis, and we've got space now for this plant that I know is going to grow big and bushy to actually expand. And over here we also have space between it and the mucdenia. So I think that's a job well done. In the trug, of course, we have lots and lots of the plant. Now, you can pot these up if you want, or, well, just put them on the compost. It's all a big circle of life after all. Okay, that's all I wanted to show you. Thanks very much for watching. Bye. Psh, psh, psh.